Rappin with ReefBum is sponsored by Bulk Reef Supply and Ecotech Marine.
Hey, what's happening, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Rappin with ReefBum. I'm your host, Keith Berkelhamer. So, on today's live stream, I have the pleasure of welcoming Evan Montgomery from Reef Builders to the show. What's happening there, Evan?
Hey, how's it going, everybody?
So, all right, before we start chatting with Evan, I want to thank the sponsor for this show, Bulk Reef Supply and Ecotech Marine. I really appreciate these companies supporting the show, and I appreciate all you folks out there tuning in. We got a lot of people coming into the stream I can see, and I thank you for that. Please spread the word by hitting that like button. I see we've already got over 40 people watching, only 12 likes. Let's get those likes up, folks, so more people can find the live stream. And as always, encourage comments and questions. I think Evan and I were talking, we'd certainly like this to be an interactive live stream, so toss your questions in the chat. So Evan, man,
Yeah, I've got the chat room up on my iPad over here too, so I'm keeping an eye on you guys.
All right, I'm going to throw you a curveball, man. You're a big skier. I'm a big skier. Let's just forget talking about reef keeping. Let's just talk about skiing tonight. What do you say we do that?
I can have just as much fun talking about skiing all night.
Mark Vanderwall, what's up, man? What's happening there, Mark?
There's Mark. Yep.
Welcome to the live stream. Yeah, I mean, so we got Reefstock coming up, and
yeah, I guess that was the original. What this time slot was this was Jake's time slot originally. So he was going to come on and do some Reefstock promotion. So that's what I'm here to do today.
Yeah, he
among other things.
He reached out to me a while ago, and said, "Hey, could I be on the live stream in February? I just want to kind of do a little promotion about the Reefstock." But we're gonna talk a lot about that, and I think maybe we'll save that for later on in the live stream. But yeah, man, I thought it would be kind of cool to just kind of get to know you in terms of you've been a reef keeper for a long time yourself, and you're becoming a lot more visible, obviously, on the Reef Builders YouTube channel. But Evan, man, why don't we kind of like start by talking about your journey in terms of reef keeping and how it kind of all started, and how you ended up with Reef Builders.
Well, I was in 5th grade, and my friend Angela back in the day got me a betta fish, and that kind of started it all. I can't say, like, a year later, I probably had 20 aquariums, and none of it was like fancy, anything, crazy. It was just teardowns from the classifieds in the newspaper that we'd go drive across town and go pick up a used 20-gallon tank with a goldfish in it or something like that. So yeah, that beta fish, that started a whole addiction, that's for sure. And then, I mean, it wasn't more than a couple of years before I started dabbling into the saltwater, for sure. So, I mean, that was 5th grade, so I was like 10, 11 years old, something like that.
Wow. And
yeah, so that was, about 20 years ago.
so how did the reef tank thing happen for you?
Well, I mean, I grew up basically on Reef Central, I feel like.
Reef Central, yeah.
Yeah. So, and, there was a few podcasts back in the day that I'd listened to. Shout out to Mark Levinson did one. This guy named Rob Weatherly did one back in the day. Tom and Nevin Bailey did a podcast called Pet Fish Talk that you could call into on like a radio show, basically. And I called in almost every week talking about something that was great. Talking about RO units or tiger barbs, it was a little bit of everything. So those guys definitely going out. I even visited them, their wholesale fish place in San Diego.
Wow.
So those guys definitely on the freshwater end of things got me in deep. Saltwater wise, yeah, I guess, Reef Central was my for better or worse, Reef Central was it back in the day. So,
it's kind of changed though, right? Because I mean, obviously Reef Central's changed a lot, but
well, yeah, I mean, I still go on there occasionally, and there's still a few recent posts, but there's not a whole lot of substance there.
it's a shell of its former self. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
But I too was that was the first forum I ever discovered was Reef Central, and yeah, there was a lot of information to be had on that forum, and I think it was maybe easier to kind of navigate that stuff back then versus today because there's just so many different sources of information out there, and it can kind of be hard. I would especially think for people just getting into the hobby.
Yeah, I mean, I can't even begin to keep up with all the YouTube videos just for this hobby, let alone everything else I want to watch on there. So there's a lot of content now. It's it would be difficult to parse as a new person coming into the hobby, I could imagine. Yeah.
Farm Frag says wet web media was my go-to.
I remember that wet web media. That rings a bell.
What's happening, Amanda Meckley?
Oh no, wet web media. That was Bob Fenner's site. Of course, it rings a bell.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. But yeah, things have changed a little bit in terms of where we get our information. That's for sure. Was there anybody on Reef Central or anybody locally that was kind of a somebody that inspired you in terms of reef tanks that you sort of followed their methods?
You can't really say I followed well. I followed Mark Levinson's 280-gallon build thread, from beginning to end. So following that gave me a lot of things to think about and into, how I kind of wanted to assemble my own tanks. I've never done a tank that big. This 90 behind me is the biggest tank I've ever had at my, in my own house, which I think, I might go up a little bit bigger than that. But for a home tank, I don't need that much water in my house.
Yeah. No, I've kind of had quite a journey myself. I mean, I started similar to what you did in terms of the beta fish. I started with a goldfish, and I've told this story before, but I won a goldfish at a carnival, and I had to picked up a 2-gallon tank to house it and to quickly take the bucket, and then I just kept getting bigger and bigger tanks, and then I started with freshwater tanks and planted aquariums and all that stuff, and then reef tanks, and it's it's part of the addiction, man. You just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I mean, for you, like, what would be a dream tank for you if you had the space and the time and the money?
I mean, not to jump ahead in the conversation, but I mean, that's kind of why me and Jake kind of had a similar thing that we wanted to do when we built the studio, because there is no one dream tank. A mixed reef of any size is not that, you gotta have multiple tanks. I'm sitting here in my living room and I've got 8 aquariums around me, and then I go to work and have 25 tanks at the studio or something like that. So that's like the ultimate tank is 25 tanks.
Yeah,
I think.
good answer, man. Mark Vanderwall. Anybody remember Aqualink, that's where we all were before Reef Central, but then we got tired of the heavy moderation, so then John L started Reef Central. Aqualink.
Yeah, I mean that name rings a bell, but I can't say I was ever on there.
Yeah.
But Reefer Madness, and there's a bunch of sites back in the day that
there was,
are probably still around.
Yeah,
but...
I mean there was a website, Reefer Madness, that sold corals. I remember that.
Yeah, there was that. They had a forum on there too, didn't they?
I don't remember that.
I don't know.
Yeah. All right, man. So you mentioned your 90 right behind you. Let's see. I got some video right here of the 90. So this is a video that you pointed me towards that I ripped from the Reef Builders YouTube channel. That's you standing in front of her right there, Evan. This is about a year ago, and it's changed a little bit versus what we see behind you today. But it's a pretty impressive collection of stony corals in there, and so it looks like you've done some aquascaping, and so I don't know, man. Tell us about the tank and what you do to keep it ticking. And obviously, it looks like a very healthy reef tank. So whatever you're doing seems to be working, man.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. Well, I mean, not a lot has changed since that video that you're showing, other than just growth. You know, I haven't taken any corals for the most part and just rearranged the furniture, so to speak. You know, things I've just kind of left them be where they are. Sometimes to the detriment of things getting shaded out. You know, there are a few, you know, Monties that I had down on the bottom down here that are just, they haven't seen light for 6 months now. This side of the tank, I don't know, lefts and rights on the cameras is weird, but this side of the tank over here, just a couple weeks ago, had a bird's nest. There was a big chalice that was grown onto the overflow box. And it was just as grown in as the other side of the tank. So, but I finally got around to just going in there and ripping out that bird's nest. You know, I've got a big squamosa clam, and I'll let a couple Montiporas get shaded out, but I'm not letting my squamosa get shaded out. Is that a
blue squammy?
Yeah, I believe. Yeah, I mean it is blue. So
nice. That has always been a thing. Well, I used to keep clams years ago. I just don't keep them anymore because I've just had no luck keeping clams the last few years. But when I was really into clams, you know, that was like always kind of like my holy grail clam was a blue squammy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I got this as just a little guy, so you know he's pretty sentimental to me at this point. I definitely wasn't going to lose him to a bird's nest.
Yeah.
So this side of the tank is looking a little empty right now, and I do need to go in and trim out some more dead stuff that I didn't get a chance to pull out yet. But once this side of the tank is looking better, then I'm going to tackle this side of the tank. I kind of hate to do it all at once, and then there's just nothing pretty to look at. At least half the tank looks good.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, bird's nests can grow fast, you know. And
oh yeah, I mean, I left a chunk of it still back there the size of a baseball, and it's not going to be long.
So in the video that I showed before about it, this is about a year ago. Did I see the crystal experiment in the tank?
I didn't have the crystal experiment.
Okay, because it looked like a plating, like a green cupping Monty.
That was the Langsai. Langsai cap.
Gotcha.
Which is just as nice. I mean, the crystal experiment's like really interesting, but the Langsai is one of those classics. So.
Yeah. No, because I remember when I was talking to Chris Meckley on the last time I had him on the live stream, I think we were talking about the crystal experiment. And, you know, it was one of those corals that Jake actually collected. And it's got this really cool growth formation on it.
Yep, I've got... I don't even have any in that tank right now. I do have some over in my 40 gallon.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. I moved so many. I don't know. Corals are everywhere, coming out my ears these days. I can't keep track of where it is.
So, all right, man. Talk to us about the setup behind you in terms of the lighting and the calcium and alkalinity supplementation. The kind of like the guts behind the tank.
Yeah, Radeon Gen 4s, Vortex, Nero 5. I guess maybe I'll just go ahead and pull the camera off and we can give it a little tour.
Why not?
And then let me go ahead and switch my microphone too so I can walk around.
While you're doing that, Andy's got a question for you. Which are Evan's favorite Reef Builders corals?
I don't know if the Langsai is considered a Reef Builders coral, but now that we mention it, I mean, that's definitely one. Basically all the Jake corals, the ones he collected, I mean, kind of at this point, they became my favorites, for obvious reasons, I think at this
Yeah.
point. The Immortal Torret. Galaxias are... They suck at this coral because they're so mean,
Yeah.
but like I kind of love them, As far as like Reef Builders corals, though, I guess, yeah. I mean, the Palaostrea is another one that Jake collected. The Manila Spy, that's the name.
That's a cool.
Montipora carinata, something like that. It's kind of like the crystal experiment with the branching, but it doesn't do the encrusting thing that I've seen.
I got a frag from Mechlea, the ACI Manila Spy. Dude, it is just growing so fast. I don't know what to do with it.
Yeah, mine's got Montipora eating nudibranchs, and it's growing faster than the nudibranchs can eat it.
That's what you need, fast-growing corals when you got pests in the tank, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I'll just trim the base off of that at some point.
Yeah, well, they're doing you a favor then.
Yeah, they're kind of slowing it down for me a little bit. Yeah, all right, let me switch. I'll put it on this other microphone here so you can hear me when I walk around.
Keep those questions coming, folks. We'll try to put them in the bank here and get to them right away.
I got audio output here too.
Rob, upstate New York, my icon is the Langsai. So it's a cool Montipora. Sounds like your faucet's dripping.
No, that's an overflow on the.
I figured it was, but you know.
Yeah, I don't have a gate valve on there.
Gotcha. So
tuning it, I have to just use the control for the pump, and I only get 10% increments, and it's just 10% is not fine enough control. So yeah, that does sound like a drippy faucet.
All right, we got you. Any while we're getting situated, any specific Paul from Great Bearded Reefer moderator is asking any specific lighting profile on the XR30s?
Basically the AB plus, and then bring the whites down.
Gotcha.
What the heck?
Oh, you're trying to get your phone to switch your phone to the camera?
Yeah. I literally just unplugged it from power, and then it like totally disappeared as an option. Well, maybe we can just talk about something else while I figure this out.
Another comment about the Manila Spy. Piotra? I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. I got a frag of the Manila Spy from Chris at Aquashell Chicago, and wow, it's beautiful, grows super, and I love the story behind it. Yeah, it is. Bobby Heath Keith, so if you ever set up another tank, I guess you're turned off of dry rock. Yeah, I got another video about dry rock coming out. Ain't happening.
No, now I can't even find my phone as a camera source. So I guess
all right,
we'll just move on for now. I'll try to figure that out in the background as we go. So we'll do the tank tour when the time is right.
Yeah, so I think part of what I saw in that video was that you also had a DeStocco calcium reactor, right? So that tank is being fed by that calcium reactor. And are you using anything else, like any Kalkwasser or?
Yeah, pretty much all three ways that you can supplement. I'm doing it. Before I ripped out all that bird's nest and the sprung stunner, that calcium reactor wasn't keeping up, and I had some dosing pumps doing about 30-40 parts of 2-part every day. And then I also have a Kalkwasser reactor that drips. I'd have to check, but I think it's like 2 liters a day, something like that.
What's your pH range in that system?
Haven't really tested for a long time.
Oh, really? You don't even have a controller in that tank, huh?
No, I mean, I have a little. No, I am the controller, as Jake would say. I do have a little pH pen that occasionally I'll calibrate quote unquote calibrate with the solution. I don't know. It's supposedly it's a reliable brand, but I don't trust the results because it'll give me like 7.0, and I'm like, I know my
Yeah,
tank's
you're not at
7.0.
7.0.
Yeah. Even right after I calibrate it, it'll give me like 7.0. So, no, I don't know.
Wow. So
I should go grab. We have a really nice Hana Bluetooth one down at the studio that you pair up to your phone. I should go, and that was like always our standard that Jake really trusted. And seems like, or at least it was the one that gave us numbers that we liked. So I should go grab that and bring that home one day and actually find out. But I mean, everything's, it's not giving me a reason to test the pH. A lot of times I'll test the alkalinity and it's way low or something like that. Also, I mean, knock on wood, my corals are pretty resilient when it comes to the chemistry. It seems like so.
So Mark has got an interesting question here. Evan, any thoughts on elevation in regards to a reef aquarium? Never thought about that.
So there aren't actually any stores up here anymore, but back when there were shops up here, just like some little pet shops with some freshwater stuff like that I'd buy fish from back when I was a kid. I'd always hear the owners complaining like, man, I lost half my fish that came in because of the elevation. And that has nothing to do with it. They just sucked at running a local fish store. So, I mean, not that I've noticed in any way other than protein skimmers. Most protein skimmers are like calibrated, if you want to put it that way, when they're made to run at sea level. So I definitely have to do a little different tweaking, and sometimes this protein skimmer almost seems like it's like choking on air up here. Because where I live up here, and I'm in the mountains, so people think Denver is high, a mile high, but I'm almost a mile higher than that.
So what's your what altitude you at?
I'm just short of 9, I think, right, or just about 9 right here.
Pretty high up.
But I'm surrounded by steep mountains. To get between here and Denver, I have to go up over. It's kind of like a pass, on the interstate through a tunnel, and that tunnel is at 11 something. So,
yikes.
When we pack bags of fish, we have to leave a little room for expansion for sure.
Jeez, man, that's
an effect that I guess the elevation has is, how you pack fish.
Yes.
I'm trying to think anything
else.
What
about carbon dioxide?
I can't think of anything that would be different about anything having to do with carbon dioxide up here versus anywhere else. The lights on our fans, or the fans on our lights, sorry. The fans do run faster up here because there's less air that they're pushing through. So, I'll run my lights sometimes like a little XR15. If it gets any dust in there, that fan is good, like at top speed. So I got to keep my fans cleaner because, they're already running, I don't know, maybe 20% faster. I obviously haven't done any studies on that, but yeah, other than that, as far as like the actual fish themselves, like I imagine there might be some like swim bladder acclimation that they go through when you bring them up to a higher elevation. But when you think about how quickly water pressure builds up, like if you're a scuba diver, like 33 feet is equivalent to the entire atmosphere above our heads. So coming up even almost 2 miles. I don't know how tall is the atmosphere. It's a lot more than 2 miles.
So Andy's.
So I'm saying it's a relatively a small change that they would experience, if any at all. So
Paul, the Great Bearded Reef says, "Damn, I was huffing and puffing on the treadmill at 67.5 feet. I'm assuming that's above sea level." So laugh out loud. Andy's wondering, like dry air, lots of evaporation. Do you have more evaporation, would you say, at altitude, or is that not the case?
Well, yeah, I guess. I mean, we have, if I crack the window, that's 10% humidity at tops, so I can dry it out in here real good, which is nice. I don't see any downsides to having the low humidity. Yeah, it would evaporate more, but then that would also allow you to dose more kalkwasser if that's the route you wanted to go.
Yep. Chris, ACI, what's up, buddy? What's up, Evan and Keith?
What's up, Chris? What's up?
Yeah. So,
speaking of Chris, something tank and some tanks. Oh, there we go. I got my camera.
Hey, we got the camera going. Just all of a sudden, randomly, it started working.
No, I was rebooting my phone.
Ah. When in doubt, reboot.
Yeah. Turn it off, turn it on again, and then actually for now I can go back to this microphone too. Okay. Yes. Chris, when he was out at the studio, he noticed that we've had some dinoflagellate problems in one or two of our tanks, and actually my frag tank back here has just been a mess with dinos recently too. So he shipped us out a bottle of some iron, and it's crazy concentrated apparently because you put one drop in 100 mils, and then 1 mil of that treats 25 gallons, something like that. I have it written down. I believe that's right. So crazy concentrated, but he gave me the recipe. So hopefully by the time he comes out here next Wednesday, we have no more dinos.
Oh, so there's a couple of tanks in the studio plus the frag tank behind you there.
Yeah, one system at the studio is pretty bad with it.
Really?
And then our main 600-gallon system, there's one tank on that system that just for some reason is just a mess with them. So I'm going to probably treat that whole system. Actually, I would just been treating, Chris said treat all the systems with a little bit of iron because that's a good trace element that the corals need too. So just something interesting that's been going on, iron dosing.
Yeah. So what do you think brought on the YouTube? Thank you. That's a username is YouTube, or it's actually Mr. YouTube? I don't know, but thank you for the super chat.
The YouTube himself.
Mr. YouTube, thank you. Always good to see Evan. You too, of course, Keith. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. YouTube. Or Mrs. You know, maybe it is she. I can't tell. So, do you think there was anything that brought on the dinos on those tanks? Was there anything that you like made any changes, or were they relatively young tanks?
I was dosing less trace elements, there after Jake passed away, because the bottle wasn't going to last forever, and until I, figured out where I was going to get more. So there was a month or two there I was dosing less traces. That's about the only change that's been made. It is cooler this time of year, and apparently dinos do better in cooler tanks.
Huh.
So that might have something to do with it, but those are just guesses.
Gotcha. Folks, just remind you there to, if you haven't already done that, smash that like button so we can get more people to watch the stream. We already got a pretty good audience viewing us. Yeah, Evan, every little bit helps, man. So, all right. Obviously, your tank is been doing really, really well. It sounds like it's a very simple setup, right? You've got no controller. You're not even like monitoring pH. Do you do any other testing in terms of like alkalinity, calcium, nitrate, phosphate, that sort of thing? Do you keep?
Yeah, I try for weekly. Usually more like every other week. I'll give them alkalinity, calcium, magnesium, salinity, at least those, and then I got temperature constantly monitored. That's easy enough. That's about it. I mean, I don't go crazy with ICP tests or anything very often. I don't know, once every 2 years when I get a free ICP kit at MACNA, I'll send it in. But
yeah, why not?
Yeah, exactly. I got, if I get a free ICP test, I'll do it. But I don't know. I dose some replenish for the Brightwell stuff and some amino acids. So I don't really test the traces. I just dose a little bit because a little bit's a lot better than none at all.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. No, for sure. What about salt? What are you using in terms of salt?
I dip into our supply at the studio from time to time and take some of the Julian's accuracy.
Yep.
But most of the time I just use the I don't know. Chris is going to make fun of me for this, but I use the Red Sea stuff.
What was I going to ask you? Oh,
the Red Sea Blue Bucket, lower alkalinity.
Gotcha. What about your maintenance routine? Do you lean on water changes? Is that a big part of your routine, or no?
No, I mean I do water changes when it's necessary to siphon something out. And then, even if it's, as long as I'm doing it, maybe I'll siphon out a couple extra buckets as long as I'm doing it. But I'm, that's why, the salt, I don't really go through that much because I don't do water changes that often. I'll siphon out the sump 3 times a year. Sometimes I'll let the frag tank just get kind of funky. I won't clean the glass on there. And then when I go through and finally do scrape the glass, it's like big sheets of algae that come off. So at that point, I'll go in there with a hose, and that's pretty much when I do water changes is when I have to siphon something.
Well, dude, so you said you got four tanks at home, and you got 25. Is there 25 tanks right now at the studio?
A couple of the smaller freshwater ones have come down recently. I haven't done like a total up-to-date count, but in the neighborhood of 20. You know, not that many systems, but if you talk about just displays.
Yeah, I mean,
and then he got 7 tanks on 6 displays, or on 6 systems, something like that.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, you got a lot on your plate, man. I mean, that's a lot to take care of.
I mean, I'm a hobbyist at heart.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to stop.
Yeah.
What else am I going to do?
Yeah.
I mean, skiing, obviously, but.
Yes. So here's a question for you. What, you know, so you obviously you've been keeping reef tanks for a long time, and I think it was, what, 4 years ago you met Jake? Started working with Jake? Something to that
20. Effect? Well, I mean, I met him 2014, I guess.
Right.
But yeah, I didn't start working with him until he set up the studio, which was after Macna Vegas. So that would have been 2018.
So
5 years ago. Yeah.
What, you know, I know, you know, Jake was always very, you know, vocal about certain methods and certain ways to keep a reef tank. What, did he kind of, his philosophy, did anything rub off on you in terms of, you know, how you keep your home reef tanks? Did you make any changes to some methods that you had been, you know, kind of sticking to for a long time?
Well, for sure there'd be sand in this tank behind me if it wasn't for Jake. that's an
He said he was Mr. Bare Bottom.
Oh yeah, he actually Macna in San Diego, where I bought this tank, that was like an end of show deal with the tank stand and sump. Jake was there, and he actually helped me load this tank up in my car. And as I was like, I don't know, I was undoing the plumbing or something like that, he comes over with a shop vac from some other booth and starts sucking the sand out. And I'm like, hey man, it's my sand.
Really?
And I talked him into letting me keep it that time. But no, I mean, that was, I think, the first thing that me and Jake like worked on together was moving this tank out of Macna showroom in San Diego.
So he just wanted to take that sand and dump it.
Oh, I'm sure he was waiting all weekend to do that. No matter who bought the tank.
So, all right. Sand bed, no sand bed. Anything else that rubbed off on you?
Yeah, I mean, just the simplicity of how simple reef tanks can be. You know, I'd probably have a Neptune Apex on here if it wasn't for Jake and saying, like, you know, you don't travel a ton. What do you need that for?
Oh, the monitor, the controller. Yeah.
Oh man, and just I don't know. The way I look at the corals is like more like animals now.
Yeah.
You know, that rubbed off from him.
Yeah.
You know, he saw them as like living animals that were freaking cool.
Yeah.
Not just like something to put on display, you know, like he got into it.
Yeah.
And that definitely rubbed off on me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know, I think that was something that hopefully rubbed off on a lot of people. That, you know, that was a gift that he had that was a pretty rare thing, you know, and
yeah,
he was the guy that kind of, you know, carried that torch. So I think, you know, to keep that legacy alive, it's just we all have to kind of like remember the things that were really important to Jake in terms of that sort of thing. And you know, I also remember just, you know, the whole naming thing, right? Scientific names. That was another big thing that he really just tried to champion. And you know, just the educational piece of it all, right?
Yeah. We're just trying to keep that legacy alive as best we can.
Franklin,
I see Mark asking if the Ultims are still around, and yes, they are for now, Mark. We're trying to find a buyer for them, but I may end up being that buyer.
What is an Ultim?
A freshwater angelfish.
Ah,
yeah,
gotcha. Okay, Franklin West, go ahead and put sand in that tank.
Yeah, that'll be the day.
I got, you know, my 187 gallon tank. I've got like a little sand bed left in that thing, and I've got like some of this green cyano that I've been kind of like battling for the last few weeks. And I'm like, man, I'm just gonna like freaking pull that sand bed out of there and just be done with that crap, because I'm just tired of battling But
Unless you have to have it to like make your eye not twitch, then it's not going to help your tank at all. And like I look at my tank, I'm looking at the corals, I'm looking at the fish. I don't miss this. I have never like missed the sand since it was been gone. You know, I put gravel in my freshwater tanks, bare bottom freshwater tanks. Something seems a little off about that to me. I like to have just, you know, literally one piece of gravel thick. Just, you know, I'm looking at my other freshwater tank over here right now, and half the bottom, just from the pleco moving around, has no gravel, and half the bottom has gravel. It's just having a little bit in a freshwater tank is nice. But yeah, sand's just another headache when you end up having to move the tank. Like,
yeah, you know, it's I don't know. I mean, all my wrasses have died, so just like, you know, that was
I've kept wrasses, plenty of wrasses over the years that I guess none of them are currently living right now, and maybe that's why. But I mean, they seemed totally happy for the years that I had them. So
yeah, I know. It's so I don't know. I mean, it's just I think I might have to take that step and pull my sandbed. I don't know. It's we'll see. I mean, I like it when it's white, you know, but
yeah, right.
but when it's got this freaking green algae on it, and
oh, if I could have a shallow sand bed that sloped up towards the back, so I didn't have that crap along the front, you know, and stayed that way and stayed white, and the fish never moved it, and corals never fell and died in it, like, sure, maybe.
you know, and I've always had ugly sand beds. I've never taken care of my sand beds. I've always kind of like had a cleanup crew to, you know, I've always just kind of been lazy, taking that approach, and had a cleanup crew. I was like, let them do the work. I'm not going to do the work. And you know, so it's never been pretty when I've had a sand bed, but I've never had like issues like I'm happened in the current tank with the sand beds. So it's a pain in the ass, and it's definitely a detritus trap. So anybody out there that has success with sand beds and wants to drop a few words of wisdom in the chat, go for it, because it's something that right now I'm struggling with personally.
Yeah, I see Mark saying he uses Reborn, the calcium reactor media, as a kind of crushed coral substrate.
Yeah.
And if I had to do anything, that's what I would do.
That's a good idea, Mark.
Yeah.
Great Bear to Reef. Pull it and crank that flow. I know, Paul. I've got like I've got 4 MP40s in that tank, and I think I've got them like at 70%, so I could kind of certainly crank those up. Sammy 31.
Yeah, I've got 3 MP40s and a Nero 5 cranked at 100% reef crest. So yeah, I don't think a sand bed would stay put.
Chris, ACI, take the sand out slowly. Yeah, that's what I'm planning on.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be like one afternoon. You can just do it over.
Yeah.
You know.
I actually made the decision to take the sand bed out like last week, and so I siphoned a little bit of it out, and I was, you know, it was kind of a pain in the ass, and then like the next day it looked okay. I was like, all right, maybe I'll just try to maybe I'll just try to keep it and be a little bit lazy and not pull it. But I think, yeah, you gotta do that sort of thing slowly, right? Because
especially if it's like established, you know, if your tank's only been up for 6 months, maybe you can yank it all out, but. Yeah, unless you're planning on doing 100% water change at the same time, I wouldn't. I wouldn't pull it all out at once. But
I'm just looking at the comments.
I guess we pull it out, but
all right, man. So
I do have a little dish of sand in my frag tank for walking dendro.
Right.
Because they seem to like sand, so I just have a little dish.
Yeah. I mean, that's always one thing. If I wanted to, like, you know. I love leopard wrasses, so if I wanted to put, you know, some leopard wrasses back in the tank, if I pulled my sand bed, I would always, I guess, have the option of taking a little tray of sand.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard that can be successful.
Yeah, if you can find a flow spot where it's not going to blow all over the place.
All right, let's incorporate some of these comments and questions from the chat, and folks, feel free to drop more of them into the chat. Franklin West, what does Evan do for hair algae? I've tried a number of things like sea hairs, and I'm ready to go ahead and put the fluconazole in, but I was trying to avoid chemicals. Anything that you have done, you know, Evan, to battle hair algae?
Well, I have used fluconazole mostly for bryopsis, but I can't say it didn't help with the hair algae either, actually. But I mean, I didn't have as much at the time, so it wasn't a full-blown experiment, I suppose. But I struggled with this recently. My frag tank was completely overgrown. with hair algae, step one is always going to be to go in there and just pull out as much as you can. Especially if
Yes.
you have a small tank, it's totally manageable. Just go in there with this little siphon hose and get as much of it off as you can. You know, you kind of get the feel for how to siphon and pinch at the same time. And then the next thing I did was I got a pincushion or an urchin, one of those little
Yeah.
urchins that picks up frags and carries them all over the place,
Yeah.
which isn't the best thing for a frag tank, but but it did help with the hair algae quite a lot. So, I mean, especially in a small tank, um, yeah, that's what I mean. There's no chemical trick. Fluconazole, if you're going to use chemicals, would be what I do. I mean, you can try just changing more water. Um, Yeah, I don't know. Herbivores, because it was growing like crazy in my frag tank, but in my big tank there was nothing. And I'm thinking it's because I have some tangs in there, one tang in there.
Yeah, I always think that manual removal of whatever algae you have is like a huge, huge thing in the battle of it, right? Because if you're not, getting rid of that algae, then it's going to be sucking up a lot of phosphates and nitrates, and it's going to kind of give you the false readings that you've got zero phosphates and zero nitrates. So it's just there, and it's there's obviously phosphate that's going into the system. So it's always like a nutrient problem, right, in terms of algae.
Yeah, well, and you have to remove it because that's the only way to remove
Right.
the nutrient from the system.
Right.
Because if you just kill it with the chemical, then all of the nutrients that make the hair algae just dissolve back into the water,
Right.
and you're back at square one. So you have to get in there and remove it. Just manual removal.
And
Have to.
and I always say, using chemicals is sort of like a band-aid. Unless you know what the problem is and you're able to solve that problem, if you hit it with chemicals, then eventually it's just going to come back, right? Because you haven't really gotten to the source of the nutrient issue.
Yeah, I mean, I guess also like step one, manual removal. Step two, feed less.
Yes.
At least until the algae goes away.
Yep. It was interesting because I was having this, when I was trying to troubleshoot the algae in the sand bed in my display tank. I did a couple of things. One is that I did take a clump of sand from my sand bed, put it in a cup of RODI water, left it overnight, and did a phosphate test, and it came out 0.08. So there was obviously phosphate in my sand bed. But I also did another test. I have this homemade food that I feed my tanks. It's like stuff I get from the supermarket in terms of seafood, and I use some nori, and I throw some broccoli in there. It's like a whole mishmash. I've got reef roids I put in there, some garlic extract, a whole bunch of stuff. So anyway, I took a clump of this frozen food, defrosted it in RODI water, and let it sit overnight. And then I did the same thing. I took another chunk of the food, but I rinsed it with through a fine mesh fish net. And so when I tested the unrinsed homemade food the next day with the phosphate test kit, it was off the charts. I think the phosphate test kit only
Oh, I'm sure it was.
only
Yeah.
goes to like 2.5, and it was like 2.5. It was not readable. It was too high.
Yeah, you'd have to dilute that
Right. And
before you get a good reading, probably. Yeah.
right. And then the
But you got the information you needed. A lot of phosphate.
right. And then the washed version of that same food, I think it was like 1.6. So it was still like, a lot of phosphate in there, but just a simple washing of the food
Yeah.
was something that I thought was also going to reduce the phosphates. So yeah, I think that you got to look for the source, right? In terms of the
Absolutely. Yeah. And maybe if you had a field of green star polyps in there to eat all the little bits of food or something like that, then maybe rinsing it, maybe the effect on the actual effect on the tank wouldn't change that much. But no, I love little experiments like that because it just shows you black and white. Like, yeah, maybe I shouldn't be dumping that in my tank every single day, 3 times a day.
yeah. Sammy31D says Mexican turbos too on green hair algae. Yep, that's a good tip. Mark has got an interesting question. This is a kind of shifting gears a little bit here. Evan, with the massive amount of variety of corals you handle, have you developed any allergic or skin reactions to specific corals?
Any any anemone for sure gets it's not a bad reaction, but it's mildly irritating, kind of itchy for an hour or something like that. It's I've never had a severe reaction to anything, but I have noticed just every time I put my hand in any tank, over the years, like my arm's just kind of itchy. And even if it's a freshly set up tank with new salt water and there's no nematocysts floating around in the water or anything like that, I have noticed over the years that I've become a little bit more sensitive to just salt water in general. But any LPS stinging, like an elegance coral, I try to avoid touching those as much as I can. It's not going to like seriously ruin my day, but just mild irritation that I figure isn't going to get better if I keep doing it over and over and over again. I've even heard that with things like palytoxin, that one day, like they just, I don't know, it like builds up in your system or something weird, who knows, but yeah, nothing specific to any coral. Just, I mean, that carpet anemone, I always wear the arm length glove when I'm scrubbing that tank down.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, that thing will just stick to your arm and you peel it off and you still got little blue specks all over your arm. And there's, even as you're rinsing them off in the sink, they're still stinging you. And yeah, I try to avoid that one.
Yeah.
Question though, Mark.
I've never had any carpet anemones, but they're gorgeous. And I guess you got to like have the right kind of setup for one of those things, right? I mean, I think I've seen some pretty kick-ass SPS dominant reef tanks with carpet anemones. I think John Coppolino has that. I believe he does. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe it's somebody else. Sammy 31D.
Yeah, I mean, fish is the only issue with them,
right?
Or obviously if they crawl over a coral, that's not good. But if they stay in their corner of the tank, I mean, fish getting stuck in them, that'd be the only problem.
Sammy 31D, you ever got blisters? I had one recently, fragging and working in a NEM tank. Bro, I woke up with a blister on my knuckle and couldn't bend my finger. No previous injury. I was baffled.
Not really. I mean, I guess, when your skin turns red where it got stung, it kind of swells up a little bit, but that's not exactly a blister. No, knock on wood, no blisters yet.
Yeah. All right, man. You want to talk about the studio? I know. So you provided me, Evan, with a studio walk around video, but then I also downloaded that one that you had put on the Reef Builders YouTube channel. Should I start showing the walk around video?
Yeah, I was gonna say maybe before we totally switch gears, now that this camera's working again, I can just have a quick
go for it, man.
2-minute walk around. I think I got the.
Yeah, I think you're all squared there.
I think I got it all set up, unless the same thing happens again. As soon as the camera's not plugged into power this time, so all right, nothing's gonna change. And then output.
Mark Vanderwall, yeah, paper cuts on the hand are great at detecting stray voltage, for sure.
Yes, they are. Yes, they sure are.
Whenever I walk around in the summertime, in my frag tank room, I don't. It's a cement slab floor. If I don't have any shoes on, even if I don't have any stray voltage, I feel like a tingling.
Yeah, I mean, early days when I was getting into the hobby, I was growing up with, Craig's or classified tanks and just, garage sale light fixtures and stuff. And I got electrocuted so many dang times. I hate the feeling of electricity from growing up in this hobby, man. All right, let's see. Are we still connected?
Yes.
Cool. Let's see. It doesn't show what I'm looking at on my phone, which is kind of weird. But so this is kind of one of my favorite things recently is some fancy goldfish I got. I was out doing a fish store run distributing some Reef Stock flyers, and I don't know, man. There's just something so nostalgic about these guys.
Yeah, it's like classic. What kind of goldfish are those?
Fantails, orandas, no Ryukins, orandas, Moors, black Moor, telescope eyes, nothing like crazy fancy. I was looking on some goldfish websites I was maybe going to order from, and you can spend big bucks on some crazy looking goldfish. But yeah, oh man, big time.
Like what? I mean, just humor me. Like what would like a fancy rare goldfish cost? I guess koi, it's like,
Well, I mean, there's
yeah,
koi that go for like
yeah,
millions of
yeah.
dollars, and I think there's some goldfish that do too. But on the websites I was looking at, you could spend $600 to $1,000 on a fish, no problem.
Wow.
Yeah.
Hopefully they're
But yes, these guys are
hopefully they're
fun.
long.
And
Hopefully
then,
they're long lived.
yeah, well, I mean, goldfish can live like 50, 60 years,
Holy
something like
crap!
that. The fancy ones I don't think they live quite as long, but I mean, if nothing else goes wrong, you can probably expect to get 20 years out of
Wow,
them.
like clownfish.
So, and as a kid, I had one that was the size of a soccer ball, the body was. So they can get pretty big. I've got the air stone going back there, so they got plenty of oxygen.
You got a little
but-
treasure chest going there back there?
Where's that?
I was just joking.
Oh no, it's just a normal
Yeah, okay.
airstrip. Yeah, I do have a bubbling ship tucked somewhere
nice.
in the garage.
Okay.
I could pick up.
Cool.
Yeah, and this tank, I guess anybody that watches Reef Builders will have seen. This was looking pretty crappy just a few months ago. I didn't clean the outside of the glass. I didn't think I was going to be showing this off really, but yeah, started getting more frags in here, cleaned up. I still got to take out a bunch of Aptasia and stuff.
What's your go-to for Aptasia?
If I'm doing it manually, I'll go ahead and use sodium hydroxide, which is lye.
Yeah.
And then biological, I have a filefish in the main tank.
Aptasia eating filefish.
That I haven't seen an Aptasia in there in years with him. We have a copper band at the studio that you put a rock in there with an Aptasia, like a frag plug with one Aptasia on there, and he goes straight to it. It's the craziest thing. It's great. So actually, the main rock I have in here with that Gorgonian was down at the studio originally, actually. I might just take that down and plop it in the coral flat over the weekend, and I bet it'll be clean by the time I come in on Monday.
Yeah.
Now that I think about it, that might be the best course of action. All right, and then to continue the tour a little bit, and then I've got a few corals down in the sump down here too. Just frags from when I tore down the bird's nest and stuff like that. Then over here, I've got just a community tropical freshwater tank, some Harlequin rasboras, Buenos Aires tetras, Siamese algae eaters, old pair of silver dollars I've had for a while. Nothing really fancy in here, just kind of like the goldfish, just another nostalgia. It's just all nostalgic to me. So, and it's a good place. I don't know. When I'm going around to fish stores, I see like random freshwater fish. And I just got to have a community tank. So if I see something I must have, I can take it home.
Have you ever dabbled in the freshwater plants?
Not a lot. No, actually, I guess we'll skip ahead in the tour. I've got a couple over here. This is another tank I just set up. I've got some fancy guppies.
Oh, cool. Love the skull.
And some little cories and stuff like that. Yeah, the skull with the Apano bulb stuck in there. So this is pretty much all that I have for live plants. Nothing crazy. I think that's hornwort is the other one.
I never had any luck with live planted tank. I just couldn't keep it going. But I wasn't. My understanding is like you got to like have the substrate right, and I guess some people use carbon dioxide and all that stuff. But
yeah, we've got a couple. Well, one main planted tank down at the studio that I maintain, and it's got CO2, and I don't even remember what we put in there for substrate back when we set that up like 5 years ago. So, yeah, I don't know. Plants are something on the horizon for me, possibly to do someday. But
cool.
Yeah, so I've got the fancy guppies. I've got a jewel cichlid that's real shy. Hardly ever comes out of the vase. Oh, that's actually back in the corner right now.
Oh, yeah.
But, just a little 5-gallon tank here, pretty much.
Sweet.
Frag tank. Like I said, I had a bunch of hair algae in here recently, and it still has a bunch of like dinos and weird bubbly crap. So I'm not out of the woods yet, but I took a lot of the corals out of here and put them over in the 40-gallon. Just to make some space so that, because I knew the algae was going to come back, and I don't need to be shuffling around 100 corals every time I'm trying to suck the algae out. So this tank's a little underpopulated at the moment, but a couple torches, Samacora, I do have a pair of the Biota captive bred mandarins
nice.
in here. I don't know if you can, that one that just swam past in the back. I picked those up in Milwaukee at Macna, and they were just, I mean, they're 5 times the size they were. They were so small.
That's a beautiful thing, man.
Yeah, so they're cool. And then I got one clownfish in here and a cleaner shrimp.
Yep. Very cool.
So yeah, this tank's not like super showcased right now, but it's always good to have extra square footage for corals.
Oh yeah.
And that's tied in to the main system. You know, sump down here is pretty simple. Claracy.
Built a roll.
So my phone's not showing me what I'm filming, so this is kind of tricky.
Yep.
All right, yeah, Claracy, Maxspect jump skimmer. There's the Kalk stir, which is like bone dry on Kalk. I need to recharge that soon. Carbon, the top of one of those BRS carbon reactors. So I don't know, once every 6 months, I'll throw some carbon in there and turn that manifold on. It's not like constantly running, but you know, if I'm stirring up a bunch of crap in the tank, I'll put that on there. I actually am back to a Mag 9 for my return pump right now, and it's looking kind of funky right there. But yeah, because the power supply, I think that's what the issue is. The power supply for my Vectrid died, and the plumbing height of a Mag 9 is the exact same, so I didn't have to change anything. I just had to swap out the pump. And that Mag 9, man, that ran my old tank for 14 years, and here it is still just chugging away. So
well, yeah, you're obviously keeping up with the maintenance, man.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have to do much with that one, but yeah, I mean, I do try to take it apart at least once or twice a year.
Yeah, you did a video right on Reef Builders about tank maintenance and stuff, how important it is.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I should probably do another one here. Well, you know, as long as I'm. Uh-oh, what happened?
We can still hear you.
Your
video froze though.
What is it about putting this thing on the tripod?
It doesn't like the tripod, huh?
Oh.
There we go.
There we go.
Yeah, gotcha.
I think the tripod mount is pressing buttons on the screen as I'm locking it in place.
Cool. I mean, that's a very eclectic collection you got there, Evan.
Yeah. So now I guess that's just, and I've got, you know, some random little fish bowls and stuff around too, but we don't need to take the whole show to talk about every little thing I've got with water in it. But
so is that a good segue to talk about the studio?
I think that's a good segue.
All right, I'm going to start playing the studio walk-around video you supplied here, and you're going to... yeah, it's muted.
This is on YouTube if anybody wants to see it later.
Oh, it's on YouTube.
Isn't that the...
Oh, yeah, okay.
I don't know if I included that. This is from a talk I gave in Norway. I filmed a little walk around to the studio. I don't know how much narration this needs right now, and if I'm watching it on YouTube right now.
Yeah.
And there's going to be a delay, so narration might be tricky. But this just kind of walks around the studio briefly to just kind of give you a sense of the size of the place. You know, this didn't really go into specifics on any of the tanks. This is more just to kind of get the layout of the place is why I filmed this.
Yep.
So I was giving a presentation over in Norway, and I wanted to show it off a little bit.
Yep. Yeah, it's looking awesome, Evan. See the coral flats. What?
Oh yeah, you're ahead of me. I'm watching it over here on YouTube, 20 seconds behind.
Yep. So, all right, a couple of questions for you about the studio tanks. Any favorite tanks for you at the studio?
That anemone system is hard to beat. You know, I hate working on it. The clearance on that tank sucks. I hate cleaning that tank, but it's just one of those retail racks that you'd see like fish in basically at Petco or something like that. And the selection of corals that Jake put in there, you know, we've got the Shroom Room, the Chalice Palace. I don't know what we dubbed the middle tank, and then the anemone, a bunch of anemones up top. And, you know, if I walked into a fish store and saw that like glowing wall of corals in a retail rack like that, I'd be like, oh, I'm coming back to this fish store forever.
Yes. I'm playing the video of the 30-minute video. I'm trying to like, let's see, fast forward through some of this stuff. So
yeah, kind of screw and find the highlights.
The first shot is the one of the peninsula tanks.
Yeah, we call that the flagship tank.
Flagship tank.
Flagship peninsula. And actually, man, these videos, this was all filmed about September. And actually, just looking at it, I was just looking at the zoanthids that are on the bottom of that tank, and they have grown so much in so little time.
Really?
Yeah.
What is that? A Looney Tunes Zyastrip on the bottom there?
Bizarro?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
So let me fast forward through here a couple of these tanks. Yeah, so I think somebody asked, is the Jake's Weeping Willow, how's that doing? And
we haven't had that for years.
Haven't had that for years.
No. Sanjay was the only other one with peace, and apparently he lost his also. So the Weeping Willow is no more. We have that one there in the flagship that is a Weeping Willow look-alike, but that Weeping Willow was special. You know, you could tell that it was not any of these other leathers. And yeah, it was right after we set up the studio. I mean, we had like a dime-sized piece of it that we were trying to nurse back to life, and it just didn't make it.
All right, so now we're looking at the coral flats. Oh, and then we just went to a freshwater neon tetra tank.
Okay, yeah, we got a decent amount of freshwater at the studio too. That's the planted tank I was talking about down there.
I love neon tetras. I mean, are they tough to keep? Do those things croak all the time? I mean, is it like you got to replenish the tetras, or?
I think in the video we're looking at right now, they're cardinals, which are
cardinals. Okay.
A little bit touchier than neons. Neons are, one or two steps more hardy than cardinals are. If you get a good source for them, they're bulletproof, but they're so often packed in tanks with thousands of them where disease is rampant. And yeah, I mean, that's kind of the story with a lot of freshwater fish. If you get a source for healthy ones, you're golden.
Yes, that seems like the key. But now we're looking at another peninsula tank here with the
it's our Montsport dominated Red Sea.
Yep. Such a cool.
And anybody who's interested in more information about these tanks, over the last year or two, we've showcased, we've done a video like going in depth on each one of these tanks and kind of what's in it as far as fish and corals and what do we use for lights, and all of that information has been documented as we set these tanks up and kind of followed them over the years.
Yep. Coral flats tank. There's I can see a ling side cap.
Yep, that is the ling side and that coral flat. Yep, right. Yep.
Pretty amazing stuff. The Christmas tree rock. That's so cool.
Yeah, that little tank is the best. I love those little things.
Yeah.
You don't see them very often.
So, a lot of corals at the studio. I don't know if we asked you this question. I think we did ask you what your favorite coral was.
Ling side. The encrusting hydnophora. When that thing's healthy and happy, like it looks like it's just fuzzy. It's great. Gonnies, obviously, there's some really nice gonnies down there that I'm in love with. But yeah, I think we kind of covered that earlier.
Yeah. All right. What about fish, man? What are some of your favorite fish in the studio?
At the studio, there's these Brazilian flameback angels that we have in the mangrove tank. They're so cute when they're eating, and I don't know, something about them. I love them. We had a leopard wrasse that I don't even, it was probably a year or two ago that thing died, but that was definitely one of my favorites. The Stark Eye damsels. There's two damsels that start with an S, and I always get them mixed up. Stark Eye and anyway, yeah, some of those like weirder damsels that you don't see every day. Definitely like those. Trying to think. I don't know. We got a Yerple tang. Everybody's like all excited about those these days. I don't know. Ours just hides a lot.
I saw one of those, a few of those, I think at Magna.
They did have some at Magna.
Right, they had some at Magna. Yeah.
We had ours before that, actually. So
I mean, they're interesting.
I'm for a while, but it hasn't grown much. Doesn't come, I mean, it comes out, grabs some food, and then goes back in the rocks.
Really? Yeah, I mean, they're interesting fish, and it's like amazing in terms of like how, the story behind the fish in terms of getting
the story more than the actual fish, I think.
Right. I didn't see the, the whole attraction in terms of the look of the fish. It didn't seem to be that vibrantly colored, but I think that's also something that you see a lot with captive raised fish, is that maybe the colors are not on par with, their wild counterparts.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I saw a video of one that looked pretty nice, but still, I don't know what they want for them. Like, I don't know. Just go buy a
it's crazy money, man. It's just like, it ain't happening for me, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, I'll just go buy a copper band or something for $60.
I mean, for your home tanks, is there...
Great pre-reef in the chat, Springer Eye, that's what I was thinking of. Yes, thank you.
Yeah. I mean, for your home tanks, anything that you, fish-wise, would love to have, but you don't?
More wrasses, and I was saying mine kind of vanished on me recently, or I had one that, I mean, he jumped out and was going through a rough time. I was thinking he was going to pull through, but I haven't seen him for a while. Yellow chorus wrasse I just got, because I think he might eat some nudibranchs, and then it's like the third one I've got that either just jumped out blatantly, like through like the smallest hole ever possibly imaginable, or just simply disappeared. So yeah, more wrasses would be dope. I don't know. I have that one lone bang guy. I kind of want to get more friends for him. Nothing crazy, I guess, but
yeah, I got a bang eye cardinal too.
Convict tang, something like that would be cool in here.
I'm sorry, what?
Like maybe a convict tang or something like that. I've never had one of those before.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we have one in every tank at the studio, but I've never had one at home. I don't know. My sights have kind of been turned to the freshwater fish a lot more recently. I mean, obviously I'm still a reef keeper at heart, but when I'm going around all these fish stores, I keep seeing these freshwater fish, being like, man, I need to set up another freshwater tank, and another freshwater tank, and another freshwater tank.
That's a problem, dude.
It is. It's an addiction.
Mark says,
when you're buying schools of 15, 20 fish, that costs as much as a saltwater fish.
Yeah.
So, people are like, freshwater's cheap, and I'm like, man, I spend more on my freshwater tanks than I do on my saltwater tank.
So Mark says, I need a black long-nosed tang in my life, but man, they've gotten pricey. Yeah, I don't even know what they cost these days, but it's crazy money. I've actually had one black long-nosed tang in my reef keeping career, and I probably paid like $400 or $500 for it years and years ago, and the freaking thing developed lateral line disease. It was such a bummer. So I gave it away to somebody that said they could potentially heal it. So hopefully that worked out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've got a few tangs that if they were easy to catch out of a reef, that we might like, hey, if you think you can get this tang looking good, then, but yeah, I don't know.
Blue Reef, any news when we will see Hawaii fish come to the States? Yeah, I think there was there was actually something on Reef Builders. I saw an article about there's another potential suit. So there looked like there was some hope, but now it looks like it's going back into the courts there. So
Chris is saying Hawaii, March 24th.
Okay.
So I don't know if that's this year.
Yeah, I don't know.
And what that would be for, if that's for everything or what, but.
Mark says my convict tang turned psycho, so now he's my sump tang.
Yeah, that can happen sometimes.
That happened to me once with a powder blue tang. It all of a sudden like just wigged out on everybody, and I mean, this thing, like any new fish I would put into the tank, this powder blue tank, it would like have these all of a sudden like these vertical lines would just kind of like appear, and he would just get so pissed off.
Mm-hmm.
That it was like just, it was crazed. Biotis CB Regal Angelfish would be a great addition. Jason Langer. Yeah. The Biotis stuff is pretty cool. I think, there's
yeah, I was watching Mark Levinson did an interview with Jake from Biota I don't know, a couple of weeks ago, and I was watching that, and they were talking about some of the little fish they had, and I was really starting to think, like, man, it's tempting. Because I love small stuff too. You know, I was actually for this tank back here, even though it's 90 gallons, I want a bunch of neon gobies for it. Just the little tiny guys.
Yeah. I had a biota captive raised regal angelfish that had some crazy misbars. I bought it from another hobbyist, and I picked it up at Reef Palooza in New York this past June, and that's like my holy grail fish. I also have another misbar regal angelfish on my peninsula tank. So I was so stoked to get this this fish, and so I put it into my 187 gallon display tank, and it just like went to town on all my frags. So I had to get rid of it, which just
Yeah, gotta do something about that real quick.
broke my heart. Broke my heart.
Of course.
So all right, man. Let's I don't want to like you know, get the memory thing going too much with you there, Evan. But I think one question that would be interesting to hear from you in terms of with Jake would be kind of like your favorite story. That if you know, one sticks out with Jake. I don't know if that's something you could share or not, but if you want to pass on that, I completely understand.
No, I saw this question coming, and I don't know.
You were hoping it wasn't gonna like.
It's hard to narrow it down to one. I guess my favorite Jake Adams memory and story is the story of us building the studio. You know, that's over years. Which is a long story.
Yeah, you don't have to get into the whole thing, but
I don't know. I mean, I would always love when I'd catch him calling a coral by the wrong name, or calling
really,
or saying heads instead of polyps, or you know, those were always fun moments. And vice versa. You know, he'd catch me saying, you know, doing this, making the same mistakes, or you know. The third time I flooded something at the studio that week, he's like, "Are you going to learn?" You know, I don't know. It wasn't fun at the time, but those are, you know, those memories are good.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I hear you, man.
And driving around to fish stores with him, you know, it was always so much fun. Going running errands to go whatever, you know. Shooting videos with him was a lot of fun. Just yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I got to know Jake.
Cheers to that.
Yeah.
Jake's
Jake.
go-to here.
Yeah. You know, I got to know Jake through this this live stream pretty much. I met him once in person back in might have been 2017 at a Reef Palooza in New York. And I was a fledgling YouTube person, so I just started up my channel. I was like a nobody. And Jake didn't know me from Adam, but I knew Jake. You know, he was sitting there. He had a booth at Reef Palooza for Reef Builders, and I just came up to him. I was like, you know, and probably a very awkward voice, I asked him to say a few words about Reef Palooza, and I think I'm so embarrassed that I don't even like go back and look at back at that video that I had him actually say something, but. So, you know, he just like, he didn't even like flinch. He didn't even hesitate. You know, it was just kind of like, boom. Yes, I will do exactly, you know, what you're asking me to do. And you know, I think that says a lot about him. But, you know, in the short time that I knew him, and mostly it was through these conversations on the live stream, you know, and you know, we got to texting and or more like DMing and all that stuff, and he had you know, said to me, man, you got to come out to Reefstock this year, and you know, it's in beginning of March, and that's great time to go skiing and all that stuff, and I was like, all right, sign me up for that, but you know, he just struck me as a very, very passionate guy. And they
to a
yeah, you know, and listen, you know, he challenged me on a lot of stuff. I know he challenged a lot of other people on stuff, and a lot of times people didn't see eye to eye with Jake, and I didn't always agree with what you know, he said, but you had to like the passion, you had to like the you know, the knowledge that he had accumulated over the years, and he was just a great ambassador to this hobby, and you know, he's just missed sorely. And to me, I can't imagine, dude, what you've been going through and what Windsor's been going through, you know, his wife. But it rocked my world, you know, when I heard about it. And you know, I was talking to Meckley about it. It obviously it rocked his world. They were really very close, and you know, I don't want to get too emotional here, Evan, but
Yeah, it's all good. Yeah, I'm right there with you know, I spent more time with him than anybody else by far for the last couple of years. You know,
yeah.
like I have tons of other friends, but I never spent 8 hours a day with them.
So yeah,
8 hours a week with them.
you know, I did. There is a link in the video description for the GoFundMe for Windsor. So folks, I think Windsor would really appreciate it if you can you know, see to helping support their unborn baby, which will be
Yeah, and we've got an auction coming up around the 23rd, 24th, 23rd, something like that of this month. Merman's Reef is going to be helping put that on. And that's basically a couple weeks ago when Chris Meckley was at the studio. That's what we were doing. There was a lot of those big colonies of corals. This is going to be kind of showing off in a bit. You know, I'm kind of spoiler alert on a future video here a little bit, but a lot of those colonies that just had flatworms, that was just going to be like, I'm certainly not, I don't have the manpower to do everything else and kill all these flatworms. And so we got some help in there. We made like 600 frags. And you know, we still have every strain at the studio. You know, we were not losing anything, but those flats were getting really overgrown and just building up detritus where it shouldn't have been, and you know, flow wasn't getting where it needs to be and all that. So yeah, those frags made their way down to Jack's shop last week, end of last week. So they're going to sit there and kind of encrust for a couple weeks, and then there will be an auction, and all the proceeds will go to Windsor as well.
nice.
So keep an eye out for that.
All right, so let's talk about Reef Stock. What so there was a question before we get into that. Jason Langer had asked this question earlier, and I forgot to ask you this question. Excuse me. Ask Evan, what is a must-see for those coming to Denver for the first time next month for Reef Stock? So I guess besides going to Reef Stock and besides going to local fish stores, what's a must-see in the Denver area?
Yeah, fish stores, I guess, would be an obvious one, especially because it's winter and fish stores are a nice warm place to go hang out. If it was summertime, I'd say definitely go see a concert at Red Rocks. But I don't, they have a pretty sparse schedule during the winter. So, I mean, you could still go there. It's open to the public to just go walk around, but, you know, you don't really get the excitement if you're not at a show. What else around Denver is really cool? Yeah, I mean, the Reef Builders studio is pretty cool.
There you go.
You can come check that out.
Is that open for tours?
Reefstock weekend is pretty much the only time that it potentially is. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, there's all kinds of, there's good restaurants, and, you know, I mean, to me, the biggest attraction of Denver is getting out of the city and going to see the mountains up where I live. You know, even if you don't go skiing or anything like that, just to come up here, and, you know, if you don't live in the mountains, and you know, I have friends that come up here that feel like they're in a whole nother world because they're from somewhere flat. So that's, to me, I think the biggest attraction of Denver is not actually in Denver itself.
So a couple,
but it's only about an hour away. So,
couple more
you know,
suggestions.
have extra time.
Yep, a couple more suggestions. Mark is saying Denver Aquarium is pretty good.
Denver Aquarium, yeah. How can I forget about that? Actually, the curator Rob from the aquarium came over to the studio a couple weeks ago too, and got a bunch of the Jake collected kind of Jake Reef Builders corals. So, I mean, he's gonna obviously quarantine everything before he just puts them in one of his exhibits. So it might be a little while, but maybe next year at Reefstock you can look for a Jake Adams Bommy in one of the tanks at the Denver Aquarium.
Chris at ACI, the 30-year-old hammer at Neptune's. That's at a local fish store, right? There's a 30-year-old hammer.
Yeah, we went to. I actually took Chris there because that's down next to Chris Cap's shop, Aquatic Art. It's, I don't know, not even 10 minutes down the road from there. And the hammer was looking a little closed up the day that we were in there, but you know, I've seen that thing in every stage of happiness over the years. So
Is that a branching hammer?
it's a wall hammer.
Whoa, wall hammer. That's like really impressive
Yeah.
because those are tough to keep.
Yeah.
Jeez.
I believe it's, yeah, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a wall hammer. Yeah.
What's Jack and Gabe?
Oh, those are the two that run Merman's
Oh,
Reef,
okay.
the shop in Denver that's doing the auction.
Amanda
Yeah.
was asking about that or mentioned that. All right, yeah. So Reefstock, man, talk to us about Reefstock in terms of the show and what to expect and all that fun stuff.
Well, so I mean, I've been driving these flyers around, but there's a few speakers that I've seen popping up on our social media that aren't even on there, that kind of are getting added last minute. What's his name? Anthony from Delua, I think I saw on
Okay.
there. Don't quote me on any of this. Let me pull up reefstock.show for the latest info. But yeah, it's a 2-day event for people who are unfamiliar. It's going to be the biggest one yet. Lots of vendors this year. I went to a reptile conference in the same location about 6 months ago, and I realized like how big that room can get if they open up all the walls. And I don't know if we're using the whole space, but I think it's going to be, at least one of those extra rooms over what we had last year. And we are adding some freshwater booths this year. I was up at not Algae Barn, Fish Crew in Fort Collins. They have a booth there, and they're bringing a bunch of freshwater plants and stuff like that this year, actually. So, and maybe I'll have a planted tank before I know it. I can't really share my screen, can I?
No, unless you wanted to use your phone to like show the screen, but
I don't know if there's.
Well, here's a good question for you. What's different, in terms of Restock versus other shows out there? You could kind of point something.
Yeah, it's kind of a hybrid almost feeling between like a Reefapalooza and a MACNA. We definitely have a lot of livestock vendors, especially a lot of our local guys.
Yep.
That come and set up a booth. So it's definitely got that frag swap kind of energy going on. But it's also got speakers, and Reefapalooza doesn't really do the whole speaker thing, and the whole like educational thing is like why I fell in love with going to MACNA.
Yeah.
So Reefstock is trying to take that all like to the next level and kind of merge it all into one like ultimate show, basically.
Yep.
And we've got the list. I mean, it's too many to count right now. I wish I had an exact count on how many vendors we had this year, but I'm looking at the floor plan, and there's a lot of big booths and double booths, and a whole section in the back with some freshwater stuff. The raffle, I'm not sure if 100% of it is going towards Windsor this year, but I know there is definitely some raffle kind of happening to go towards her as well. So, and the raffle's always great. I think we do 2 raffles per day. So there's, great prizes from all the sponsors that donate all kinds of fun stuff, from whole tank setups to test kits. You can get a little bit of everything.
Yep. And you got great speaker lineup. I think you got Than from Tidal Gardens is going to be speaking.
I know we have Than, yep.
Mr. Meckley. But I bet he's not going to talk about pH.
He better not.
And Amanda says that they're bringing some of Jake's corals from the farm, and we'll be adding them to the raffle. All proceeds are going to Windsor.
Okay. All right. That's good to know.
Yep.
All right. Here's the updated ones. Saturday speakers, we got Than. Got Anthony from Delua. I believe that's who that is. We have a fragging demo with Chris Meckley from ACI. And Sunday, Chris Meckley speaking on commercial coral farming. Ben Johnson from Reef Beef.
Right.
Many of you guys probably know him. He's speaking at 1 p.m. on Sunday. Aquarium maintenance tips and tricks. And then Taras Pleskun. I'm not familiar with that name. So, but yeah, we have 3 speakers each day. So,
cool.
3 speakers and then a fragging demo on Saturday.
Nice. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I am certainly looking forward to going to the show. It's going to be my first Reefstock show, and Yeah, I wish we could have hooked up skiing, man. I can't. I know you're busy getting ready for the show, and I'm going to do some skiing out in Utah before that.
Yeah.
But yeah, hopefully maybe if the stars align the next time, we could you could show me around. I'm sure you know where all the hidden stashes are where you're at there in Colorado, man.
Oh yeah, even at busy old Breckenridge, I can go up there and find fresh stuff. So, because done a little bit of exploring on that mountain, that's for sure. But
All right, but getting back to Reef Stock, I guess if folks want to find out more of purchase tickets, you just go to reefstock.show, correct, Evan?
correct, yes.
Yep. Okay. And like I said, we also have a link in the video description for the GoFundMe for Windsor. So please, folks, if you haven't already made a donation, it would be greatly appreciated. Evan, man, any final thoughts before we sign off?
Well, actually, talking about Reef Stock kind of did remind me of a funny Jake story. It was before I really even knew him. Like, I knew who he was, obviously, because I was at Reef Stock. But I had, bought a coral or whatever I bought. I assume it was a frag or something at a booth at Reef Stock. And then, a good number of hours had went by, and I was over at another booth on the other side of the show. And, totally put that in the past. And then Jake comes over. And this was at Gonzo's booth, if anybody remembers Gonzo at Reef Stock. I think he moved out to Kansas or something. I don't know. But Jake comes over and like right in front of me, flashes a credit card and says, "Josh, I'll buy their whole booth." And then just kind of pauses, and I look at the credit card, and it has my name on it. And I'm like, what the heck is going on right now? I'd forgotten my card at that other booth, like, earlier that day. And Jake knew who I was, at least at the time, enough to track me down. And I was looking at that like, if you're buying it on that card, I'm taking it all myself.
Yeah, nice.
So I kind of forgot about that, actually.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Fun.
But
Yep.
so I think it'll be a great time. So folks, if you haven't still decided to push the button or not in Restock, highly recommend going.
Do it. I mean, we got a great location for it. The hotel is literally 10 minutes from the airport. There's not much in Denver that's 10 minutes from the airport, but Reef Stock is. And you can get cheap flights to Denver. It's kind of a central hub. So you can swing a round trip for $120, maybe something like that, and a $20 Uber to get out to the show, and you're there for the weekend. So it's a really convenient location. It used to be a little further south down in town. I don't know, 30, 40 minutes from the airport, but now it's only 10 minutes from the airport. So come on out, guys. It's going to be a great show.
Cool. All right, man. Well, listen, Evan, thanks again, dude, for taking the time to join us tonight. We really appreciate it. So I want to thank you for that. I also want to thank Bulk Reef Supply and Ecotech Marine for sponsoring the live stream. And I also want to thank all you folks out there for tuning in tonight. Really appreciate it, especially the super chats. Finally, a big thank you to Paul, the moderator, who is also the president of the Boston Reefer Society. Please join and support your local reefing clubs. They are so important to this hobby. I also want to let you know that all episodes of Rappin With ReefBum are available as podcasts on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and Amazon. My next Rappin With ReefBum live stream will be on next Thursday, February 16th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. My guest will be Than from Tidal Gardens. And if you want to check out the full upcoming schedule of guests, go to reefbum.com on the YouTube section. Until then, be safe and be well, and we will see you next time.
Thanks, Keith.
Thanks, Evan.